Hello, and welcome to English for Everyone, where we practice real-life American English. Today we're going to clear up some confusing vocabulary, so let's get started. Today we're talking about the verbs skin, scrape, and scratch, and the phrasal verb scratch up. So let's take a closer look. First, let's talk about the verbs skin and scrape. We can use both of them to describe this. He fell down and he skinned his knee. Or I can say he fell down and scraped his knee. I think skin is more common. I know what you're thinking. Skin, that's a noun. This is my skin. But it's also a verb, talking about this. If you fall down and scrape your knee, you can say you fell down and skinned your knee. Skin in the present, in the past, skinned. Scrape in the present, in the past, scraped. Example, he's crying because he fell down and skinned his knee. Or I can say, he's crying because he fell down and scraped his knee. Let's practice. Why is he crying? Did he fall down and skin his knee? That's right. He's crying because he fell down and skinned his knee. Let's practice with scrape in the past. Scraped. Why is he crying? Did he fall down and scrape his knee? That's right. He's crying because he fell down and scraped his knee. Now let's talk more about the verb scrape. This is a scraper, and she's scraping the wall with a scraper. Let's practice. What is this thing called? Is it called a scraper? That's right. It's called a scraper. And what is she doing? Is she scraping the wall with a scraper? That's right, she's scraping the wall with a scraper. Now let's talk about how the verb scratch is different. She is scratching her arm. You see the lines on her arm? That's scratching. She's scratching her arm because it itches. Remember the verb itch. I itch and you itch, but it itches. Her arm itches. That's why she's scratching it. She's scratching her arm because it itches. When I link the sounds and say it together, it itches, it itches. You hear the T in it pronounced as a fast D. It itches. She's scratching her arm because it itches. Let's practice. Why is she scratching her arm? That's right, she's scratching her arm because it itches. Pronunciation. We hear she's scratching her. She's scratching her arm. Remember, her is not a stressed word, so we don't pronounce the H. You hear scratching her, scratching her. She's scratching her arm because it itches. And now look at her arm. Her arm is all scratched up. We use the phrasal verb scratch up when it's completely scratched. It's scratched all over. We say her arm is scratched up. Or I can express emphasis with all. Her arm is all scratched up, because she scratched it a lot. Now her arm is all scratched up. Let's practice. Is her arm all scratched up? That's right, her arm is all scratched up. She needs to stop scratching it. Another example. The cat scratched her. Pronunciation, the cat scratched her. Not scratched her, but scratched her. Her is not a stressed word, so the H is silent. You hear scratched her. The cat scratched her. Or I can express the same idea in passive voice. She was scratched by the cat. She was scratched by the cat. Or I can say the cat scratched her. Let's practice. Did the cat scratch her? That's right, the cat scratched her. Was she scratched by the cat? That's right, she was scratched by the cat. Now let's talk about these tall buildings. What do we call these tall buildings? Do we call them sky scratchers or skyscrapers? We call them skyscrapers, not sky scratchers. These are called skyscrapers. Tall buildings are called skyscrapers. Let's practice. What do you call these tall buildings? Are they called skyscrapers? That's right, they're called skyscrapers. So remember the difference between these verbs, skin, scrape, and scratch. And also remember the phrasal verb, scratch up, because it's different. Thank you for watching, and keep watching to practice with more confusing vocabulary. Today we're going to learn some confusing vocabulary, so let's get started. Today we're talking about this word, shed. It can be a noun and it can be a verb. First, let's talk about the noun. A shed. It's a countable noun, so we have to use the article a. A shed. This is a shed. It's like a little house used for storage. You store things in a shed. Example, this is a shed, and I store my lawnmower in the shed. If I speak in general, I say this is a shed. But if I talk about my specific shed, I use the article the. I store things in the shed, or I store things in my shed. I store my lawnmower in the shed, and I keep my tools in the shed too. Let's practice. Do you keep your lawnmower in the shed? Very good. And what about your tools? Do you keep your tools in the shed too? Very good. Now let's talk about the verb shed. What does it mean? It means to give off. For example, a snake can shed its skin. The skin comes off. That's shed, the verb. Let's practice. Do snakes shed their skin? That's right. Snakes shed their skin. Another example, dogs and cats, they shed too. They shed their hair or they shed their fur. But you don't have to say hair and you don't have to say fur. You can just say shed. Cats shed and dogs shed. My cat sheds all over my couch. It's not a good thing. But it happens. Let's practice. Do cats shed? That's right, cats shed. And right now, is the cat shedding? That's right, the cat is shedding. You can also shed tears. It's the same idea. You're giving off tears. They're coming out of your body. You can shed tears. Example, he didn't cry at all. He didn't shed a tear. Let's practice. Did he cry at all? Did he shed a tear? That's right, he didn't shed a tear. So remember, shed can be a noun and shed can be a verb. If it's a noun, it's countable, a shed, for storage. And the verb means to give off. And we can use it in different situations. Thank you for watching. And if you like this video, subscribe to our channel. And if you want to become a member, click the join button. And we'll see you next time.